Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of ClueCon Weekly. Joining us this week is Dave Michels, and a personality in the telecoms world, and the lead analyst at Talking Points and a host of other positions. So, thank you, Dave, for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
You'd like to start with a quick introduction about yourself?
Well, you said principal analyst, which is the official, boring title. The title I like to use is protagonist. I'm the hero of the communication story, and no, maybe not necessarily a hero, but I try to have a positive. I love this industry. I love the industry. I've been in it my entire career, and a lot of people, it's just a job, but for me, it's really just I love communications and what's going on in this space.
That's great. So, in your work, you've done a lot of analysis. You've been watching the market, and you've been working on a lot of interesting topics. And one thing that struck me when we chatted about what could be the possible options are, is unified communications still alive? That's the big question you lad, and I really want to hear your take on that.
Well, it's certainly not. UC is not dead, but compared to where it's been, UC is not even that old of a term, but it's relatively quiet, and so people assume because it's been so noisy that it must be dead because it's been so quiet. If you think about the last 20 years. We've gone through so many revolutions that the lack of a current revolution is disconcerting almost. But
Hmm.
I know you go to Astrocon and stuff, and so the voice goes back 100 years, and that industry lasted a long time, and then right around the turn of the century, voice over IP came out, and it's just been nonstop rapid fire. We've gone from obviously the digital to IP. That was one big revolution that changed a lot of things, and a lot of vendors didn't make the transition. A lot of new vendors came out of nowhere. We've gone from totally proprietary to open source to free. We've gone from hardware industry. The old PBXs were all about the hardware, and even in the beginning of the open source industry, you had to buy the cards and to plug a phone line in or trunk line in. So we've gone from a hardware industry to a software industry. Then we've gone from a software industry to a services industry in the cloud, whatever that happens to be. We've expanded from voice into messaging and meetings and other services. We've gone from hard phones to soft phones. We've gone from totally proprietary. We went from totally proprietary to like SIP video or SIP communications to WebRTC. We've gone from closed systems to open APIs and Twilio type of CPaaS type of services. So there's been all this drama. It's all in the past 20 years. And so now things are kind of quiet. It's like everything's kind of working. Everything's kind of, and so voice must be dead, or UC must be dead, or communications is dead. It's like no, it's not dead. It's just breathing. It's actually just catching up a little bit. It's hung over.
I definitely agree with that. It's the market Signal is part of the UC and CPaaS world, and to me, it feels like the market has become strongly incremental. So there are no more big things to build, except for a couple things that everybody's working on. And for a long time, innovation has been confined to we have a new API that does this. We have a new UI that's 10% more efficient in building your PBX. It's really been a lot of incremental stuff. So the question is, though, of course, the industry has to go somewhere. What is next then? What are we supposed to do? Should I look for a job? Should everybody just want to go work at McDonald's?
Well, the good news is communications isn't going away, and in fact, becoming more and more pervasive in almost everything we do. And so, the good news is communications is here for it has a healthy future. But yeah, what's next and what's going to be exciting? what our industry tends to do, I mentioned voice goes back 100 years, is it reinvents and changes. We're seeing that dramatically right now in the contact center, particularly with AI feeding a lot of that. But every, if they don't reinvent, they die. And fax machines are kind of in that long mature state where it's just nothing going on. But communications itself is broader and keeps on reinventing. So what's the next reinvention going to happen in core communications? The one that I've been actually most excited about, it's taking longer than I thought. I think a lot of people are confused about it. It's what I call, people have different names for it, but the other names don't matter. It's what I call it matters. But I call it UCaaS Mobility 3. And what I'm talking about is the convergence of the mobile network and the IP or VoIP network. And I call it UCaaS Mobility 3 for a reason, because it's really the third generation. And the first generation of it, which was right when voice over IP kind of came out 20 years ago, was really kind of, for lack of a better term, creative call forwarding. The vendors would call it, follow me, find me, whatever. And basically your phone would forward to your cell number and you could pick it up. It worked pretty well. It had some disadvantages. Your voicemails ended up in different places, and making outbound calls was hard if you're trying to control your caller ID. And there was a bunch of issues, but that was what I would call UCaaS Mobility 1. UCaaS Mobility 2 is what most of us have now, which is basically an app on your smartphone that allows you to make calls over the data network of your cell phone, and it works pretty well. People like it. It has a lot of advantages. It was the star of the pandemic. People would just take their work home and they could make their phone calls and do their meetings. It has a bunch of limitations, though, and a bunch of issues that people mostly are in denial about. But UCaaS Mobility 3 is when they're putting the UCaaS number natively on the SIM on a cell phone. And now, instead of using your cell phone app, you're using the cell phone dialer, and from a enterprise perspective, you have one carrier for mobility and for enterprise UCaaS. And so Microsoft's in this space with Teams Phone Mobile. Cisco is in this space with what they call WebEx Go. There's a number of other providers, like InReach in Europe, out of Amsterdam. They have a nice version of this. So there's a handful of vendors. RingCentral's got this, not through RingCentral though. You have to get it through like AT&T, Office at Hand, or Vodafone in Europe. But basically, they could put the UCaaS number on the SIM, and to me, this is kind of a no-brainer, right? Now as an IT administrator, I could move a phone number to a hard phone on a desktop, to a soft phone on a desktop or a laptop, to a smartphone, and I've got full control over this, one numbering plan. And you take like a WebEx Go solution, and a vendor could have one provider, one solution globally. This solution could work globally. WebEx and Microsoft are doing it two different ways, but one of the ways that they do it is their own MVNO. And so I've been using this. Actually, I travel a lot to Europe, and they gave me a trial phone, and the WebEx Go just boots up in every country I go in. It says WebEx on the top of my cell phone, and any call I make on that line gets logged in WebEx, which is a positive and negative. But from a enterprise perspective, you often want to track and log these calls, and then if I want to make a personal call, I just use the other SIM on my phone, and it's completely off of the enterprise network. So from an enterprise perspective, you can have one carrier globally and one numbering plan globally, and total versatility. So I think this is going to be really popular. It's still kind of in the confused state when you describe this to people. They go, I already have all that, but they're talking about UCaaS Mobility 2, and there's a lot of confusion around this. But I can tell you, Microsoft keeps adding new countries. And so they haven't released any usage numbers yet. I think it's one of those things that's going to be very, very quiet until it's very significant. All of a sudden, it's going to take off. But so UCAS Mobility 3, I think, is going to be a big one. I think we're probably in for another set of browser wars. It's
Are
interesting.
we?
I think we are, because Microsoft ended the browser war effectively by getting rid of IE and putting Chromium in Edge. And all of a sudden WebRTC worked and everybody was happy, and most of our apps worked just fine. But people are getting frustrated with Chrome. That's one issue. Chrome won't disable the cookies and everything. They've got some privacy issues. I've got a Apple iPad, and it has a ridiculous. You have to use Safari, even if you use Chrome, you're using Safari. And by the way, that doesn't work with Microsoft Teams. It's incompatible. And so you have to install the Teams client and stuff. So it's like we're getting this little bit of a browser war again. There's new browsers coming out. We're seeing more and more browser interoperability issues, and I've been trying to kind of squat between Chrome and Safari on my Mac, and I keep on finding compatibility issues, and that Safari, by the way, on that iPad is just a horrendous experience if you're trying to use any of the Google Docs type of suite. So I think that things are kind of breaking again, and you've got these new browsers, the Arc browser coming out. We've got a bunch of stuff going on there that's going to, I think, create a bit of an incompatibility. We've got a nightmare with messaging interop, Teams to WebEx or to Slack or whatever, and I think that's going to be a issue. And we're also this could be kind of really good for the industry, actually. We're also seeing a little bit of resentment toward these big companies, and so we're seeing Europe pushing back a lot harder on Microsoft and Apple. Google just lost an antitrust case in the U.S. Now, these individual cases are kind of a distraction. If you go back, Microsoft Teams, for example, so Microsoft unbundled Teams from Office 365. That's actually going to benefit Microsoft. Now they get to sell extra cost. So these individual cases are not where the drama is. Where the drama and opportunity is the distraction factor. And Bill Gates says that the reason Microsoft missed mobility and cell phones is because they were too obsessed and concerned about the antitrust case, which was the first browser wars. And so the distraction factor is where the opportunity is. Google, Microsoft, Apple, they're now thinking twice about everything, and they're going to be slower and they're going to be more cautious. And you combine that with all the layoffs we've been having in 2024, terrible year for tech. And you combine that with the feds in the U.S. saying interest rates are about to go down. I think we're going to see a huge innovation wave of startups. You've got the giants working slower. You've got all this talent out there looking for new work and opportunity, and you have lower interest rates. We're going to see another wave like we saw before with the internet and when VoIP was new, of a whole bunch of new stuff, and factor in AI there too. So I think we're on the precipice of a very exciting, innovative wave.
I feel like I agree in all counts. I think to me as a fan, I'm a fan, not an expert of wireless technology. The idea that soon enough we will have really smart and programmable SIM cards through the mixture of CPaaS is probably the most interesting, even if probably not going to be the most revolutionary. Although for business settings it will. Like for business settings, it will really change things. It won't be in the hands of private people, like people just walking around the street will keep calling each other or not calling each other, really, which is what they do right now. Not doing voice anymore, but for businesses, it's going to change a lot.
Well, on that point, Luca, the iPhone came out. What was it, 2007? The iPhone came out.
Yeah.
And we've all been in conversations. You tell somebody at the dinner table, whatever, what you do and what industry we're in, and I invariably mention something like UCaaS. They say, well, what's UCaaS? And I say, it's enterprise phone system, whatever. And they say, I don't even know why a company has this. I have everything I need right here in my, and they hold up their
Hmm.
smartphone. And we've all had this conversation. It's like, why do companies still have phone systems? And 10 years ago, I could easily rattle off 10 reasons why an enterprise still had a phone system. Maybe 5 years ago, I could rattle off 5 reasons why an enterprise had a phone system. That list is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And so as mobility gets better and stronger and more ubiquitous and cheaper, I think we're going to see that it's not that the cell phones are going to replace the enterprise phone system, but they're going to converge, and that's that's the UCAS Mobility 3 thing. I think it's just so obvious of that this is going to merge, and it's going to completely change the way we work. And yeah, you'll show. When my first job out of college, I showed up. They gave me a desk. They had a phone on the desk. Uh, 20 years later, people showed up for work on their first day of work. They didn't have a phone on the desk. They said, "Oh, you have everything you need on your laptop."
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and now they're going to show up. They forget the laptop. Here's your eSIM, and we'll that's all you need. And so definitely things are going more mobile.
Something that seems like it is everywhere right now, and I think it's going to have a big impact on some industry, is AI. In particular, SignalWire is focused on creating virtual assistants slash call center agents instead of trying to solve everything at once, which is an approach that has paid off for us. It's a good product, people use it, and it's catching on. But do you think AI is really going to finally make call centers go away or not?
Well, certainly not call centers, because but the question that I get a lot is, are agents doomed?
Oh, okay, yeah,
And it was really,
of course. I
yeah.
meant the physical place where you go put on a headset and just take or see or make calls.
Yeah, but even that, Luca, is a tricky term, because all the agents are working at home now.
You're
But
right.
the agents themselves, people want. Let me rephrase that. Enterprises would love to get rid of all their agents, because it's the most expensive part of customer service. And so there's this promise and carrot hanging out there. It's like, wow, we could do all this for less money. That is nowhere. That's not going to happen. Um, in fact, I think agents have a pretty bright future in many ways, because a lot of the crappy stuff that they have to deal with will go away. But I, I I'm I'm a 1K elite flyer with United. So United's whenever we talk about contact center, I always bring up United, because it's the only contact center I call on a regular basis, and I mean like on a near weekly basis. And I keep on questioning myself: do I need an agent? I mean, I'm a savvy technical person. I'm a savvy flyer. I know how to travel. Why do I need to call? And when I do call, I can tell you a lot of these calls take a long time. I easily spend an hour a week talking to United Airlines, and I have to say, those agents are secure. I get good service. I'm an elite. When they call, they answer the phone. I don't have to go through all this nonsense. I'm elite, whatever. So, but I cannot believe how ridiculous their systems are. Um, I bought a ticket for myself, and my wife said, "Oh, I think I want to go on that trip." And so she obviously, you just go buy her a ticket, but then she doesn't get any of the benefits of my status. She doesn't get the upgrades, all that stuff. So I have to book the ticket on my ticket. So I call up and say, "Do I have to cancel the ticket, or do I buy a new ticket, or do I add her on?" And they're like, "Oh, this," and they explain the whole thing to me. And then we concluded the best thing to do was to cancel the ticket and then rebook it. And fine, hang up. I canceled the ticket. They didn't cancel it right. The system didn't cancel it right, and they gave me a credit. Now, if I use the credit, I can't add her to my ticket now. It's like this whole nonsense. And so a bot isn't going to replace this. Their systems are ridiculous. And so I call back, and then
I see.
this whole nonsense about how do we get this credit fixed so that I can add a person to it. I mean, this is just a routine thing. All I wanted to do was buy a ticket. I'm trying to give them $1,000, and it's like every week there's something like this, and so the agents are going to be fine. Our systems aren't anywhere there. The bots are going to do a lot more of the routine basic stuff, but a lot of people are really frustrated with bots, and so hopefully these bots are going to start getting a lot better. I saw a demo. I'll leave the names out of it. I saw a demo, and it was a demo. It wasn't real, but it was an insurance company, and they were showing what they were doing in their lab, and they showed a customer calling in, and they showed the agent's desktop, and you could hear the conversation, and the customer was making a what do you call it, a claim, filing a claim with the insurance company, and they had to upload a photo, and the agent's asking all these questions, and they're answering all the questions, and then about halfway through the demo, the person says, "Now I want you to understand, the agent has not typed a single keystroke yet." And we're like, "What?" I mean, I'm watching the agent keystroke. And then they revealed that the agent was reading scripts because the
Yeah.
technology was monitoring the phone call and was telling the agent what to say, and that every time the customer said something, that the technology was entering all that data into the system, and the agent didn't have to type anything. And I was like, wow, that's actually really impressive. And then the conversation was, well, I need to get a photo of the damage, and I'm going to send you a link. And then they sent them the link on their phone, and then they uploaded the photo. The photo came in, and it says, okay, I got your photo. And there's a very natural conversation, and the agent didn't type a single keystroke. So, uh, so that was really encouraging. So the obvious question is, well, why do you need the agent if that's the case?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is because it doesn't really work this way. It's a great demo, but what happens is the technology gets confused and says something stupid, or goes on the wrong path, and the agent has to run interference. That's why they're running it through a human. Now, if we actually get to a point where the agent doesn't type a keystroke for 2 months of calls, then yeah, that agent probably won't be taking those types of calls anymore. They'll find other calls for that agent, and I do mean that. But the technology is just not there yet. But the technology is great there if you've got real common questions. Now, my favorite use of AI in the contact center is what they call topic modeling.
Mm.
And what that is every contact center wants to know why people are calling. And so they usually come up with some sort of menu. They call it for a refund, they call it for a question about shipping, they call it for a return, they call it for whatever. And the agent has to kind of pick a category and vote. The
Yeah.
problem is those categories are always wrong, and they're and effectively uh, uh, self-fulfilling prophecies, right? They basically limited menu. It's like a restaurant that only has three things on the menu and says all Americans want to eat is three things. It's all we ever get orders for. And so what the AI, this topic modeling does, is it listens to the calls very carefully, actually figures out why people are calling without a menu,
Mm-hmm.
and comes back and creates a nice little report saying, this is why your customers are calling. And it's like, oh, we had no idea. We weren't even tracking that category. And then the best part of this stuff is what I thought. We all know the concept of FAQs, frequently asked questions. Um, if you think about it, frequently asked questions is an admission of failure. It means that you know why people are calling, and they're still freaking calling. You should have been able to anticipate that, and either provide the information up front, or make it more clear in the manual, or make it more clear in your auto tree, in your phone tree, whatever. And so frequently asked questions is an admission of failure. And so if you're actually using this topic modeling and understanding why customers are calling, it's like, wow, customers are calling because uh, they are missing a part in the box that we ship. Uh, uh, let's solve this proactively. Let's put the part in the box. Let's make the manual more clear. Let's put on the phone tree, hey, if you're missing this part, this is what you do, and you can solve this stuff up front. And so whenever I hear check our frequently asked questions, whatever, it's like, why would I do that? If you're that clueless, I don't have time to go look it up. So
Yeah, I think I like I really like the idea and the understanding that AI is only as the systems is managing. First of all, if the airline system is not capable of fixing things properly, uh, AI won't be able to. But even an agent sometimes won't be able to. So it's not really
right.
a thing. And I feel like, so for that, what I've observed in the industry, we serve a lot of CCaaS providers. We serve a couple very large ones in Europe. And what I've seen, without revealing any secret sauce that will get me sued, is that almost everybody is one shape or form doing the copilot thing, where they're transcribing the conversation in real time and they're doing topic modeling to find either information for the agent. So, okay, so this person sounds like this person wants to change their flight. Here's usually how it works, or I've seen even in cases that work very well. It's probably not as precise, but it's usually, if it's good enough, it's very good. They actually pop up the correct form on the screen. Like, you want to change your flight, they know who you are. Great. The Copilot AI finds that out and actually pops up the form that already has that Dave is in Boston and was supposed to fly to Cincinnati next week, but instead he wants to fly out to I don't know, whatever, wants to fly out to Atlanta because this is whatever work commitments have changed, and it's already pre-populated. And granted, I've seen a demo at a at an expo, so that had to work, but it was really impressive. So I think that's where we are. I'll tell this
We
one
are,
other.
and
Yeah.
I just want to throw in on the. I think one of the biggest problems we have in the industry is nobody knows what AI is, and there's a reason for that. We've been using the term AI for at least 50 years, probably longer, and the technology keeps changing. And what's AI today is not AI tomorrow because it becomes table stakes and becomes known, and so nobody really knows what AI is. And so AI is definitely changing the contact center, changing communications in general. People don't realize how much it's changed the phone call and stuff, how much it's changing meetings. There's a lot of attention is going to contact center, but we need a better term for AI. I mean, it's just not meaningful anymore, right? It, you can't have a cutting edge technology and have the same term for 50 years. It just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, the other thing I keep thinking, and I don't have an answer to, so maybe you can help me figure it out. There are some markets where call center agents are already the lowest, the lowest paid and super terrible already. There's some markets where we all know how that goes, right? Outbound marketing with the lowest quality. Is that somewhere AI is going to make an impact, or are we at the point? In my opinion, we're at the point where running AI is actually not cheaper than the cheapest agents.
Yeah. So from the agent perspective, that's what I was saying earlier. They're going to get freed up from a lot of the boring stuff. So I got a credit card in the mail, and we've all got this, and they usually have a phone number, a sticker bolted onto it or stuck onto it. It says to activate the card, you call this number, and you put in a bunch of codes, and and your card's active. I got one, and I called the number, and an agent answered, and it almost made me angry. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? You paying humans to answer this call to activate my card, and so that made me realize our expectations and standards change over time. And when people think I never want a bot, I always want a human. And it's like, well, no, I actually did want a bot in this case. There's situations where I did want a bot, and I think that if you're calling for basic stuff, the classic examples, flight status or tracking a package or delivery times, whatever. You don't want an agent. You don't want to deal with an agent. And
Yeah.
so the good news is the calls that are going to agents are going to be more sophisticated. Why can't I add my wife to my ticket? And that's more interesting work, and it's not just the bull crap of whatever. So the agents become more important and become more useful to the company. They're not just the lowest paid employee anymore. They're actually doing meaningful work that requires a lot of skill. And so I think that's all really good. Now, I mentioned AI keeps evolving. So like, where are we going next? Because like call summarization and stuff like that, that's all table stakes now. It was like magic a year ago. It was absolutely magic. Oh my God. And now it's table stakes. And so where are we going next? The next place I think we're going to go, the AI, is this personal AI, AI,
Yeah.
lack of better, the AI agent they call it, but it's not the same as a contact center agent. And that's where it gets really interesting. That's where I'm not calling the airline to figure out how to add my wife to the ticket. My agent is calling the airline and then possibly talking to a bot on their side and negotiating this out. That's where it starts getting really interesting. Now we're not in that. We're not there today. We're not even close today. But it's on the roadmap and it's coming. And I think that's going to be really interesting. Probably the best example of that is going to be scheduling. Scheduling. We all have online calendars, yet we still schedule like we have paper. And unless you're within a company, you're scheduling colleagues, then you can use your online calendar to do that. But if you're scheduling, you and I are trying to schedule a time, it's like this, like we did for this conversation. It's a bunch of back and forth email. How about Tuesday? How about Wednesday? 3 o'clock, and we got different time zones. It's just all this nonsense, and it's very manual process. And so the idea of a bot or an agent that either works with you or works with your bot and agent. So our agents will figure out our calendars, figure out what meetings we can move to accommodate this, figure out how to find this, and we're starting to see that in apps. We haven't seen anything in the main apps yet, but the classic example is on Friday before I go on a trip, I have to, I don't know, pick up my shirts at the cleaners. I can pick up my shirts anytime on Friday. It doesn't matter when, but I have to pick up my shirt. Absolutely important. I pick up my shirts. So what do I do? I go put it on my calendar at a specific time. From 2 to 3, I'm going to pick up my shirts. Now, 2 to 3 was the only time that you could have met. And so you try to meet with me on the calendar, and it's like, he's not available. It's booked. But I'm really very flexible on this. And so these new AI calendars, like, okay, you can tell it that I need an hour to pick up my shirts. Be sure to block me an hour in the day, and you can move it around. I need a minimum of 15 minutes for lunch. I would like an hour for lunch, but if Luca could only meet then, accommodate that. So you give these calendars a little more tools, and I think that'll be huge because it's amazing. It's amazing how primitive our calendars are. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I really like the idea, the concept that in general there are things where AI will always be better, especially when you don't have to do anything special. And as a frequent flyer too, mm, I'm I'm getting there to my million miles in Delta because of being based out of Atlanta for a long time. I'm 950 and change, so I'm getting there next year probably. And there's times where you just want to know something simple, and there's times when you have to do something tricky. Like my daughter has a partial upgrade on this part of the trip, but not the rest of the trip. So I'd like to transfer miles from my wife's account to her
Yep.
account, and then pay half of the price for the. And that's something AI can never figure out. Sometimes
Never
it's
did.
just, and sometimes it's much easier. And to that topic, we have a very brief story. We have a customer who, so in the Arabic Peninsula, when they do a delivery, every delivery is preceded by a phone call. You get called by the delivery company. They ask you if your address is still the same. That's because in many places, including places you think will be more organized, like Dubai, whatever, some buildings don't have an address. It's literally the red door past the Grim Bridge when you are just out of the turnpike. There's nothing else to find the house. So they call you and ask you if that's still the reference. And what they did is simply this first pass is done by the AI. So, okay, so hello, Mr. Dave, we need to deliver your package because 80% of packages are delivered to people who already bought something in this day and age.
Yep.
And of those people, 99% are not going to have moved since the last time they got a delivery. And there's like 1% change their address or whatever. So now what they do is if you say, yes, that's still my address, they're done. And the AI is capable of collecting the time you'd prefer the package to be delivered. So I'm home between 2 and 4. So, and that's what they're going to do. If you say no, it just goes to an agent. We didn't even bother with figuring out a way to get the AI to get your address and write it down correctly.
Yeah.
Most addresses have names of people in it. So so I hope one day I have a street named after me. But try getting an AI to get my name into some kind of record with speech recognition. It will butcher it so badly you won't know where to send the package. So that worked for us. That works for 80% of calls are great. They just go out, they just get the time, and that's done. All others just get sent to an agent. So now they have less agents. Their agents are more, as you were saying earlier, their agents are more prepared. They're more trained. They're better agents, and they're there just to solve the problems. Like, okay, this person actually has lost a package because the door was not red; it was blue. And you need a person to figure out where that package is because maybe it's got a watch in it that's $700. So
No,
there's a
it's it's amazing. Um, we're at there's been several studies. Customer service is at like a terrible all-time low in Europe and in the U.S. All these studies about how frustrated people are, and it's amazing how bad customer service is right now. Now it's probably going to get worse because we're putting more and more stuff onto these bots. These bots aren't quite there yet, but there's just a huge opportunity to differentiate through better customer service, and I think that is going to happen. Um, T-Mobile in the U.S. did that. I don't know, 5 years ago, when they were starting their uncarrier thing, and they had this whole thing about nobody, cell phone companies are notorious for terrible customer service, and T-Mobile was trying to set themselves differentiating strategy was to actually answer the phone and to actually have knowledgeable people, and it worked. It was amazing. I mean, you call T-Mobile and you got a knowledgeable person. It was great, and they differentiated themselves, and now they're a much bigger carrier than they used to be. But they're no longer the uncarrier that they were, and they've got rid of all that stuff. And so now they're back to where they were. But it's just a huge opportunity for companies to differentiate through customer service, and it's literally never been greater. Customer service is just at all-time lows in multiple studies and surveys. And so I think that we're hopefully going to see that pendulum start swinging the other way.
Yeah, it feels like we're at the crossroads because the AI technology is going to make an impact. I think we're past I call it the 3D television period. Like 3D televisions were
Yes.
all the rage for 6 months, then they're gone. I'm still
Yep.
on the fence whether of virtual reality is a 3D television of the
Uh,
2015s or if it's actually happening. But
no,
we'll
no,
see.
it's not happening. No, no, no.
Yeah.
Uh, even Meta has continued to pull back away from the metaverse. Um, the metaverse is coming, and it's going to be glorious, but it'll arrive approximately 2 or 3 years after the $100 goggles, and the $100 goggles is nowhere in sight yet, and so you can relax.
Totally agree. It has a hard gate to adoption, which is not everybody has or want to spend upwards of $700 up to 3,000 or change if you want the Apple one for for goggles. You're right. It's just that it has to be. It's kind of like, I mean, smartphones. You could make you could say that iPhones are always been expensive and they still sell a lot of them. But smartphones are always been a subsidized market, so it's hard to compare. Like I don't know anybody who's bought a smartphone with cash. Let's say a flagship. I know people who bought $150 device. I have a few which I need for testing, but nobody buys an iPhone with cash. Unless, I mean, I suppose some do, but it's almost not a good idea. While goggles, I mean, you need to buy them, and it's not cheap. So you almost always find a better use for the money if it's not vital for you. Like, why don't I
Yep.
get a new PlayStation instead, or why don't just go out for the family for a weekend? Because that's the type of money. Like, we're not talking
Yeah.
cheap. You're right. I think in the same vein, AI is going to be confined to users, not makers of AI, until GPUs go down in price a little. Nvidia doesn't seem to have any any idea of lowering prices for now, so we'll have to wait. But we'll see.
It's really interesting because OpenAI and a lot of these other companies they keep on lowering the price, and they keep on making more and more services free. And so people are pretty comfortable that AI is going to continue to get cheaper and cheaper. But those companies aren't profitable and have no means of being profitable in the foreseeable future. And I think the reason OpenAI keeps giving away stuff for free is because they're still trying to find more use cases. And so eventually, we saw this with the .com. We saw this, eventually reality is going to catch up and say you can't operate this stuff this cheaply. And so at some point, somebody's going to have to figure out the business equation. And it's just extraordinarily expensive to deliver this stuff, and they're not making revenue on it yet. So I don't know where the cost of a lot of this new generative AI is going to land. I'm not in the. A lot of people presume it's just going to keep getting cheaper. I don't presume that.
Yeah, that's going to take a while. Well, Dave, thank you for joining us today. We're getting to the end of the program for today, and it's always a pleasure. So, one thing I always ask a host: is there any conference you're speaking at in the near future,
Oh my gosh, conferences I'm speaking at. I guess
or
I'll be at
events or
the
whatever?
I don't they changed the name. It used to be called the UC Expo. They've got one that's October 1st and 2nd in London. I'll be at that one, and I am speaking at that one. I've got like 4 or 5 conferences on my calendar, but they're mostly analyst events, and I'm not speaking. I'm listening. Um, and so I think the only thing right now is the one in London. Perhaps I'll see you there.
Yeah, why not? It's London is closed. I might actually make it out. It's on my list. So let's see what happens. Cool. So go meet Dave. Go ask questions. And well, for now, thank you for joining us today, Dave.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much. And for the rest of the people, I see you next week. Goodbye.